Well, good day, everyone. I'm Robert Christian.
And I'm Joey Shane.
Hey, folks, here are some of the news items that we are following today on the news. From Denver, same-sex couples keep getting married in Colorado, although the state's same-sex marriage ban apparently is still in effect, or a judge has ruled as of yesterday. The decision added to the national confusion, and it has been a confusion over same-sex marriage, as the judge said that a county clerk can continue giving marriage license to same-sex couples, despite what the state's attorney general calls legal chaos. Looking at Utah wants the U.S. Supreme Court to decide whether or not same-sex couples can get married in that state. The state attorney general's office has announced today that in the coming weeks it will be filing an appeal with the nation's highest court to challenge a federal judge's finding that the state's same-sex marriage ban is unconstitutional. Let's look at Indiana. Let's not forget the Hoosiers from Indiana. Governor Mike Pence has ordered the state agencies not to recognize any of the hundreds of same-sex marriages that took place last month. The agencies have been directed to execute their functions, as although the federal judge has not struck down the state's ban on same-sex marriage ban on the 25th of June. To proceed, it has not been issued, or rather, to proceed as if it had not been issued, may I add. A Republican candidate for the Minnesota House of Representatives seat has apparently is consumed with sodomy and sharing scientific theories, is what he says, that are not connected to the actual science. Joey Shane, what do you have?
Well, Robert, in entertainment news, Laverne Cox has become the first transgendered person to be nominated for an Emmy in an acting category. When nominations were announced in Los Angeles, Cox received a nomination for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Comedy Series for her role as Sophia Bursett in Orange is the New Black. Great show. I recommend everyone check it out. In other news, it's only going to get worse unless you give us more money. Administration officials warned Thursday about the flood of Central American children illegally entering the United States from Mexico. Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson told the Senate Appropriation Committee that $3.7 billion, that's billion with a B, in emergency funding requested by President Barack Obama anticipated up to 90,000 of the unaccompanied minors this fiscal year, which ends September 30th, and another 145,000 in the fiscal year of 2015. House Republicans are going forward with plans to sue the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and will base their legal case on the sweeping health care law he championed and they despised. Speaker John Boehner said the suit, which also highlights an ironic Obamacare twist, will follow the argument. Obama violated the Constitution by circumventing Congress and alone delaying the law's requirement for businesses to provide coverage. This is the Robert Christian Show, and I'm your co-host, Joey Shane.
Hey, and I'm Mudface. No, I'm Robert Christian, folks. Hang on, we'll be right back. Start chatting in the box. Let me know what you all think of this. Ooh.
Oh, the sweet things you say. What do you call it?
All right, folks, say welcome to the Robert Christian Show. I'm Robert Christian. Joey Shane, our co-host, and I think he's frozen in time. Joey, are you still hanging in there?
I'm still here, but, you know, Skype, always Skype issues.
No doubt. I have no idea what's going on. Skype today has just been has not been that friendly.
No, not user friendly at all today.
Yeah, for the life of me, Joy, I'm looking at you, and you are definitely frozen in time somewhere.
I am. And what a rigmarole I've got going on around me. Looks like a horror movie.
All right, I'll take you off that for the time being. Hey, folks, we are having an audio-only interview with our guest governor, or governor-elect. He's running for governor of the state of California, Governor Wildstar, that is.
Wildstar.
And folks, we're going to be getting with him and discussing his campaign, discussing what he's actually doing, and I would like everybody's undivided attention. Hey folks, before we do so, you can find us on the web at robertchristianshow.com, and there you can find all the information about our shows there. Joy, I hate it because your camera is stuck.
I know, and this always happens at the most inappropriate times. I mean, we can Skype for hours off the show, but when it comes to doing the show, it just seems, I don't know. Maybe we need to find some new software.
You know what? There is a new one. Well, it's not software. Well, sort of, kind of, but not really. Anyway, hey, Governor Wildstar, hello and welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Robert.
Hey, it's a joy. It is a joy. And, you know, at times things work flawlessly. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it has a massive hiccup, a massive thing going on. And we don't understand what causes it, but we have to just live with it, I guess.
It's live for live. Whatever happens, happens.
Hey, I told you that government NSA program is something else.
So, Governor, tell us and our viewers a bit about yourself and what has promoted you to want to run for the governor of the state of California.
Well, I'm actually a native Wisconsinite. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I moved out to California about 15 years ago. And I moved out here to pursue a career in the music industry. And I pretty much took the independent route to produce and release music on my own. So I have music on Pandora, and actually landed a song in the movie Scary Movie 4. So I've had my successes with it, but pretty much my main goal for doing music was just to reach out to others and be able to communicate with them through, through music.
Right.
But my goal overall was to change the world for the better, like, Michael Jackson, or, someone that's a philanthropist such as that. And I would say around September 11th had a lot to do with it. It really just opened my eyes to the world, the real world around us, and I guess the intrusion of government into our lives. That's when the Patriot Act kicked off, and the whole TSA involvement, etc. So it just changed the world I was living at that time drastically. So that pretty much prompted me to find out more about the 9/11 disaster, and what I found out opened my eyes. So that made me more politically in tune, and that was the catalyst for, I guess, me becoming more politically aware. So I would say around 2012, I was into the whole Ron Paul campaign and became more aware of the Federal Reserve System and just the involvement of our government alone. And that's when I decided that I should start getting involved with politics myself, because I'm thinking if regular people just started to get involved with politics, we can take out the bureaucracy and make it more a representation of we the people.
Yes.
So that's pretty much what got me into politics, and actually ever since then I've 2012, I've been campaigning to promote myself, to inform people that I am a candidate running for governor. And as on the grassroots trail, that's more difficult than said, because money has a major involvement to do with politics and or just promoting yourself in general. It seems as if the public relies on the mainstream media to provide all of the information to them. And as we both know, and all of your listeners probably know, that's not always the case. So we get shrouded a lot and lied to a lot by the mainstream media. And a lot of people went out to vote in the June 3rd primary. They voted just haphazardly for Jerry Brown, which has been an awful governor.
Yes.
Over the past 4 years. There's even been spawns to have him recalled, but pretty much haven't materialized. But we in California actually had its primary election on June 3rd. And
now, Governor, can you actually get a little bit closer to your microphone? We're having some audio issues, a lot of noise coming. I guess it's coming from your mic.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So no problem. I hate the technical issues also. You're right. Just the other day, me and Robert were troubleshooting this ourselves, and luckily, things were working fine then, but it seems like now there's 1,000,001 problems. But yes, California had its primary on June 3rd, and unfortunately, back in 2010, California's voted to have in state a top two primary candidate system. So the primary election for California ended up being more important than the November election because, again, with this top two primary system, basically the only two candidates with the most votes proceed to the November election. So it doesn't matter what party the representatives or what party the candidates represent, whether it's two Republicans or two Democrats, etc. If they get the most votes, those will be the only two candidates all of Californians will be able to vote for come November. So in that June 3rd primary, about 1 million people showed up to the polls out of the nearly 40 million Californians, and Jerry Brown stole away a lot of those, and a Republican named Neil Kashkari, who is notorious for mishandling and misappropriation of funds as he was running the TARP program, and he also aided in the bailout of banks, which we all despised, but he was part of that same two-party paradigm which has engulfed our country and has been in control of us ever since. So.
Now, I know that you are, I guess, a part of Anonymous, but I do want to let you know that we are presently being mirrored across the web on a series of different networks, including one station that I do have a lot of respect for. Him is Occupy Toronto from Toronto, Canada.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love the people out in Toronto. I actually have a friend out there named Bo Duquesne. He runs a online social media network called Booyah. Is BOOYA Urban Underground. Is a new social network for those that are seeking to get away from the control of, Facebook, using specific algorithms to control our news feed and the information that we receive. So it's just a more freer format for social networking, and he's out there in Toronto, Canada, and has supported my candidacy. So I love Canada. I've been to Vancouver before, and I hope to explore more, Canada, the whole country itself.
I don't live about 3 hours south of the Canadian border. I've been there several times over, but and I enjoy Canada of any other country that I've ever been to. In this lifetime, Canada, I do like it. It's not quite United States, no, but they have their own isms and schisms when it comes to their own political arena.
Right, exactly. I mean, no country seems to be perfect thus far in doing so. Maybe Iceland, they're getting close, but no cigar. But
actually, a friend of mine that is there in Toronto, he is from Iceland.
Wow, see? That's incredible.
So that's awesome. So now, back to what I had originated, I guess, part of my this question deal with you, or comment, that you are, I guess, a part of Anonymous. Is that not right?
I would say I'm more synonymous with Anonymous. I am a representative of Anonymous. I'm not the spokesman for Anonymous. And because it's pretty much a syndicate, there is no leader. So I don't want to be looked at as being the leader of Anonymous, but I am a leader in my own right. And those people that have supported my campaign and support the push for freedom, for liberty in the United States of America, pretty much have aligned themselves with me and with Anonymous, as well as Occupy Wall Street, and any other movement out there that's trying to free us from the enslavement of bureaucracy and plutocracy. So I feel like any group that's willing to band together and go out there and make a change in the world for the better, I should definitely be aligned with. And I actually pretty much am starting my own coalition movement called the People's Party Coalition, which will be a parallel democracy, because a lot of people that I've spoken with have expressed disdain for the system itself, the whole electoral process. They don't trust it. They don't think it'll ever be fixed. So my resolution is, let's start a new democracy according to the statements made by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence. So at this point, our government has failed us, and it's time to erect a new government. And we've seen this in action across the world with, UKIP in Europe, with their whole parallel democracy. So there's examples of that. It's just that here in the United States of America, we seem to believe that the only system that will work for us is the one that exists, even though we can't stand it. So if it's broken, I'd say let's fix it.
Well, I tell you, everybody has, obviously and apparently, everybody has the right to their own opinions and their own deal. And I want to let everybody know straight up that the opinions of our guests are that of our guests. They do not necessarily reflect those of the Robert Kirsten Show. I want to make that very clear. Now, and I think that because of this, I mean, I know that there are a lot of people who are very dead set against any form of government. I don't have any problem with it, personally. However, I do know that there are people that are completely against it, and people are saying, you know what, it's time for a new democracy. Perhaps there is, but where is the line, and who is actually the ones drawing the line in the sand, saying, wait a second, we need something new and something fresh?
We the people. That's what's been outlined in the United States Constitution, and the Constitution and Bill of Rights does not apply to us as citizens, and a lot of Americans have that in mind, that their only rights are outlined by the Constitution, and that's not true. Those are guidelines for the government to keep them in bounds. The most powerful amendment to me is the 9th Amendment, which basically says you have the right to do whatever you like as long as you're not hurting anybody. And that to me is the epitome of freedom and what the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness truly is. Because if we really were an example of that, we wouldn't have any intrusions on constitutional rights, whether it be First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, or Second Amendment rights of, being able to possess an arm, a weapon. So
what? Let me dive into this. D from Occupy Toronto. He brings up an interesting point, but not in a question manner. But he says that a two-party system sucks big time. Do you think? I mean, in the U.S., in the United States, there is a two-party system. To a large degree, it's either Republican or it's Democratic. But here in the last few years, we have seen more with the uprising of the Tea Party.
Yeah.
Nationalists perhaps, independents not so much. But what do you think? Honestly, now here you are running for governor of the state of California, not a federal office, but in California, is it a two-party system?
Yes, it is. And that's what I'm saying is with regards to the June 3rd election, because of that top two primary system that was put in place back in 2010, now come November in the general election, we'll only have those two candidates to choose from. There will be no third-party option. There will be no empty slot to enter none of the above. You're pretty much forced to choose either Republican or Democrat. And I completely agree with,
well, okay, well, let's call it out. Governor Wildstar, look, are you Democratic or are you Republican if it's just a two-party system?
Neither. I'm actually running as an independent. So I would say my ideals are more in alignment with the Libertarian Party or maybe the Libertarian platform, but I don't affiliate myself with Libertarians or as a Libertarian because of the whole party system. They themselves still have flaws. So for instance, back in the 2012 election, they were telling people to vote against, the whole labeling of genetically modified foods, Prop 37, which was big here. And I couldn't understand why the Libertarian Party would oppose such a thing. I mean, and the representative that I spoke with, because I called them to find out why the Libertarians were not supporting this, and the representative that I spoke with over the phone was completely baffled himself. So that's why I pretty much just shy away from the whole two-party system in general, because a representative of the people needs to be a person of the people. So a governor of the people, for the people, by the people needs to be a person himself. And I am exactly that.
Well, what do you think about this idea? Because, there has been, it's been probably 2 years ago, maybe, about 2 years ago, but there was a conversation in social media, social networking, about another party being introduced on the federal level, and that would be the party of Occupy, for what that's worth to you. But what do you think of that? Perhaps it would happen. I don't know.
I think it would be an excellent idea. I believe, truthfully, just as Judge Jim Gray, who ran as vice president with Gary Johnson in the 2012 election as a libertarian, that the new American Revolution will be through the appending of a third party. And I believe that whether it be a libertarian, an independent, a constitutionalist, or an Occupy Party member, that this new American Revolution will be done through the political system as it exists now, through that third party, even if it is a Tea Partier. I mean, really, even though the Koch brothers have, saturated the Tea Party, I still believe there are still Tea Party members that are true to the small government, respect of constitutional rights idea that the grandfather of the Tea Party movement, Ron Paul, promoted back when it first started in 2008, 2007, I believe. So, it just pretty much, again, has been overtaken by money, and that is always seems to be the problem and the error when getting involved with politics. So if the Occupy Party can be a true representation of the people and get all of their funding from for the candidates from the people, no special interest, no, big corporation. I had a lot of my supporters be mom and pop shops. I'm a supporter of the Prop 215 and 420, SB 420 Act here in California, so I do advocate the marijuana laws, and pretty much reached out to the medicinal marijuana community here in California, and a lot of my endorsements have been from small, independently owned, medicinal marijuana dispensaries. So I believe that if the party itself can be, again, a true representation of the people, then it'll have a chance. But again, they must be very select in who they choose to promote as such a person, and they need to get organized. The one thing that I found out about being involved in the protests and marches and rallies myself is that they oppose leadership. And this is a problem. There is no problem with leadership. We have a problem with rulers. We don't want to be ruled by anybody, period. That's why we left England to begin with. So if we can stand behind our leaders like George Washington, then who was an independent and who hated the two-party system and warned us of the two-party system, if we can get back to that root, then we'll have a true opportunity to take back what's rightfully ours. And that's our country, that's our freedom, and that's our democratic, state and, new empire.
Now, this is a question, actually, from our one of our chats. Anyone interested in the Lantern Party? I've never heard of it.
Neither have I. What I've, again, started to do with the people that have supported my campaign that are involved in Anonymous and Occupy, etc., and also with a lot of labor unions, SEIU, etc., the bus drivers union. So I've gotten together with these people and we've discussed starting this parallel democracy movement, which is more so, again, an experience and a option for us to erect a new government. And it'll be the People's Party Coalition. And our goal is pretty much just to start chapters across the country. Just kind of think of it like being a Black Panther Party, only more friendly to everybody and, more peaceful. But we will have a defense unit, and we will be armed in our protests and marches and rallies. So this is, again, our proposal and way of instating this new government. Because pretty much the respect that we get from officers and judges and attorneys, just the government itself, the president and any other government representative, is that we, the people, get no respect. None at all. There was just recently a case where a homeless woman, was attacked by a CHP officer on the freeway, side of the freeway. She was barefoot, walking down the freeway, and she was approached by a CHP officer who then attacked her and struck her, I believe, up to 12 times. And it's infuriating that there are cases like this that happen every day, and not all of them get publicized. Not every single one gets reported, so we never know the true, the true state of the authoritative police officers that are creating this police state. And it's awful that we're across the board, people are afraid to drive their cars. Whenever they see a cop, they slow down and get afraid. And, we shouldn't fear our government. Our government should fear us. And those are principles of Anonymous that I do respect and protect. and do promote to others is because if you see the movie V for Vendetta, how could you ever disagree with anything that guy ever said? So we need somebody like that, you know, and if I got to be that person, or you got to be that person, Robert, or you, Shane, you know, I'll support you to the fullest, you know, and I'm with you to the end. So any person that's out there that's listening to me and feel like you are sick of what's going on, whether you're being attacked politically, whether you're being attacked emotionally, whether you're being attacked physically, the attack needs to end, and the fear of fighting back needs to end. People are afraid to stand up for themselves, and I find that to be true every time that I go to stand up against these authoritative figures to represent the people, and I call their card every time. I'm carrying a copy of the Constitution. Are you? Are you going to, you know, uphold your oath to defend the Constitution? And
you know, I do believe, Governor, that we need to, honestly, you know, as people of Earth, not just as Americans, not just as Canadians or right. Europeans, but we need to be the change in this world that we want to see.
Yes,
that's a given. And you know, if we want a world that is full of yahoos, a world full of hateful, very angry people that are so quick to anger and quick to violence, then you know what, we're going to see that. You know, and I've said, and I've made a lot of people quite upset, but I mean what I say, that I want to hang out with people in this lifetime, in my life, interview folks on the shows that are the movers and the shakers of this world and of this society. People that have something to offer, people that are energetic, people that are educational, people that are funny, people that can get very serious. But get the best out of guests, rather than saying, you know what, I'm going to put everybody on notice and make everybody mad. No, I don't want to hang out with a bunch of idiots.
Right.
You see what I mean? And so, Joey, Shane, what do you think? And what would you like to ask our guest?
I was listening to his comments about change and bringing about change, and I apologize if I misquote you. Just correct me. With armed protests and gathering together with like-minded people such as yourself, Governor, and trying to bring about change. Well, if I'm not mistaken, the NSA, and I can't even paraphrase, but it's something to the lines of homegrown terrorism, that they could actually deem it homegrown terrorism, that you are trying to take control of America, if you will. So if those challenges faced you and your supporters, how would you handle that? Because as we've seen, the American government is no longer for the people, it's for corporations, also known as dollar signs. So what would be your response to that if say you did have an armed protest and the military or police showed up and, you know, demanding you to drop your guns and arrest you for civil disobedience, I think it would be described. How would you handle that? What would be your recourse of action?
If such a thing were to take place, I would tell my people to stand their ground. Just as the supporters of Clive and Bundy out in the Bundy Ranch,
yes.
They pretty much labeled those people, okay? People, American citizens, militiamen that represented the military. They were actually retired men and women of the military, and they went out there to protect him from that land grab of the government. And the issue that you're pretty much saying without saying, Shane, is force. That's the key issue. and government comes in with force, we're not going to be forceful at all in any of our actions or revolting. And the thing about the angry youth that they want to paint as being, anarchists or bad anarchists, because there is a good and bad anarchist, but they want to promote those people as being, the trouble starters that are pretty much making things violent, and that's not true. A lot of times I've come to find out that the police have either provoked confrontations and or either have had imposters infiltrate those protests to be those people. So again, you have to know everybody that's involved with you. Everybody that's involved with you need to know the rules, and the rules is we're going to peacefully express and protect our constitutional rights, which the government needs to respect. And you're right, at this point they have deemed we the people a threat, and that should be a red flag to every single American in this country. I mean, just to know that if you disagree with your government, you're automatically a terrorist. I mean, what just came out with the Edward Snowden, release about the 5 Muslim Americans that were targeted by the NSA, they did nothing to be even the slightest of what I'm talking about. There wasn't any armed, protest. There wasn't any protest at all. They were pretty much just out there speaking, getting involved in community activity and promoting these ideas of freedom. And that should, again, be alarming to every single American, that people that are out there speaking for true freedom in this country and that would like to have that reinstated and are seen as domestic terrorists. And they even have a term for it, for we the people that are seen in that way. And there are ways that, again, that the government could try to infiltrate and get involved with trying to make it seem like to the public that we're going to be a threat. But because we have a history of works that have already proven how we can do what we do peacefully, that should be the resources that the people turn to, not the information that the mainstream media gives them. Because just as they did with the with the Bundy Ranch incident, they tried to paint those people as terrorists, domestic terrorists, and people that were trying to overthrow the country and, overthrow the government. But the people that were watching the videos on Ustream and, talking with one another via social networks knew the truth. And that's why it was diffused, and they weren't able to use that argument. So the strength comes in indie journalism, and that's why I hope and pray that people like you guys continue to do what you do. The We Are Change, Luke Radowski, Alex Jones, InfoWars, just, the Next News Network, just anybody and everybody. If you're out there expressing the truth to we the people directly from the horse's mouth itself, it will alleviate there from being any opportunity for them to thwart our promoting of this idea.
Well,
so,
what do you think? You had mentioned indie media. Okay, what do you think, though? What is your statement as far as mainstream media, and perhaps where have they gone awry?
Well, I actually participated in the past, in the most recent past, last year's March Against Mainstream Media. We gathered around the CNN building in Hollywood, and it was maybe 100 or so protesters. There's videos of that on YouTube and etc. So pretty much my idea of what the mainstream media has become is a propagandist machine. I mean, they've been taken over by corporations. There's only 5 major companies that own every single network pretty much, and people don't even know the octopus of the machine, because they think they're all separate when really they have a head. They're connected. And I learned that about the music industry. That's why I pretty much did my whole pursuit of, getting my music out there independently, was because there was 5 labels at the time, that were owning every single label. People think Puff Daddy got his own label, or, Russell Simmons has his own label. No, they're owned by Island Def Jam. They're owned by Universal Media Corporation, Media Corporation, not just music, but movies and television and print and any other kind of media source that can be given out to us. And we need to know that the freedom of the press that's been expressed in the Constitution, and that was again warned to us by another president, John F. Kennedy. He basically forewarned us that the control of our media would control our public perception. It would change the way that we think as Americans. And I would say over the last 40, 50, 60 years, we've seen evidence of that in every which way. And I'll be 33 this month. And in my short time, I've seen drastic changes. I mean, I remember traveling in the airport and catching a plane and being able to wait for my friends and family members, as they came out the gate. Now I have to, pretty much get screened and strip searched and all of this just to wait at a gate. At the bottom of the stairs where they pick up their luggage. And I mean, it's taken away from what we've gotten used to in this country, which is just more expressions of love. There's so much fear being propagated to us on a daily, on a daily scale, that people are just afraid. They're afraid of everything. They're afraid of rising against the government. They're afraid of speaking out. I just read an article where a woman, she was a teller at a bank, she got fired for telling people have a blessed day. And she's been working there for 20 years. And she got fired for telling people have a blessed day. And that just goes to show you how much evil has taken over our country and how demonic it has become in its thinking, because there's only a small few that are in alignment with what we're talking about: global peace, promotion of love and unity. And I'm actually a big fan of Dr. Jacques Fresco, who actually runs the Venus Project, and he pretty much promotes a resource-based economy. Right now we have a service-based economy. Our economy is pretty much ran on how much we work. Our blood, sweat, and tears keeps the machine going.
Now we have a good question from D, once again from Occupy Toronto. He asked you, do you have a platform right now that you're for your campaign?
Yes, our platform pretty much again is just peace and unity and freedom for all. And I mean, since my campaign pretty much is over and I'm now transitioning to take position with the People's Party Coalition, those ideas will be the principles and the foundation of our movement altogether. So
I take it the primary then in California is over.
Yes, sir. It was June 3rd. So I myself, I pretty much registered as a write-in candidate, and there were some issues with me being a write-in candidate that I'm actually taking up with the Attorney General and Secretary of State, because there was a bit of voter fraud there. But all third-party candidates, pretty much any other candidate that did not receive enough votes to proceed to the general election, have now been disqualified. So it's unfortunate again that come November, Californians will only have either Jerry Brown, the Democrat, or Neil Kashkari, the Republican, to choose from. So I'm actually with the People's Party Coalition, am about to start promoting a protest against voting in the November election. It'll be knock the vote instead of rock the vote. We're telling people to knock the vote. Do not go and vote on November 4th. Pretty much just to give us an opportunity to start fresh, because if there is a slight number of people that go out and do vote, it'll make chances for a recall or bringing in a new group of candidates to choose from a lot easier.
Now, so what would you say to the argument on the other side that say that unless you vote, unless you voice your opinion, you voice your you put your vote out there, that if you don't vote, then you have not a leg to stand on when it comes to any future argument or debate about any specific candidate?
True and false. I was pretty much telling voters that myself when I was gaining nomination signatures. I had to go around collecting signatures just so I could get on the ballot as a write-in candidate, and I had about a month to do so before the election. So during that time, I pretty much just did hardcore campaigning, and with speaking with people, that's what I was telling them, was because of this two-party primary, it was extremely important for them to go out and vote on June 3rd. And again, only a small fraction of the nearly 40 million people in California actually went to vote. So even though I was telling people it's very important that you go and vote in the June 3rd primary if you want to go and have a voice, too many people are just disenfranchised at this point. They don't believe in the system, and they don't think it's going to work. They believe that no matter what candidate you choose, red or blue, if he gets elected, he doesn't give a damn about you. And I agree with them. It's true. But it only is reflective with the two-party system. You eradicate that, now you have something inspiring. Now you have something to motivate you to go to the polls to vote. I mean, that's pretty much what got me more involved in politics, was, seeing somebody like Ron Paul go out there and fight for that spot, after two other unsuccessful runs as a libertarian. He finally flipped sides just to infiltrate the government. That was his way of hacking into the system. But as a hacker, he pretty much ran as a Republican and was able to gain more steam and more acknowledgement to the ideas of freedom and liberty.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people that are against some of the operations of the government as that it is today, and or has it been infiltrated by big money in politics? Let's take about 5 minutes or so and address that. What do you think on the issue of big money in politics?
It's gotten way out of control. I mean, even with the recent Supreme Court decision about how corporations are considered people, and the Citizens United. I mean, and the Supreme Court decision that they just had pretty much said that there is no cap, no limit to a dollar amount that corporations can give to a candidate. So this is when it's put out there so blatantly. How can the public not be infuriated? How can they not know that their system, that their government representatives will only protect and respect the interests of their fundraisers? I mean, even with the top two candidates here in California, Jerry Brown and Neil Kashkari, their both main donor is Goldman Sachs. And as much as you try to tell people, red or blue, Goldman Sachs wins, you lose. You lose. We the people lose. So it's still not enough motivation for people to get involved, to throw their support behind a third-party candidate. But if they did, they'd be surprised. And that to me is going to be the catalyst for the new American Revolution, because when that happens, then we'll actually start to see change happen in this country, true change and not fictitious change, as Barack Obama promised us. And it's pretty much taken over everything. Government has taken over everything. They're in every facet of our lives. They're in our bedroom, they're in our bodies, they're in our food, they're in our air, they're in our water, they're in everything. And
I can answer the question that you proposed at the beginning of your statement of why aren't people upset or infuriated by this. The first part of my answer would be people are not educated in how government works. They're not educated. They're not educated on how big business works and how once a corporation takes root in something in the guise of a donation, how quickly it spreads through all other facets of government. The second part of that answer would be, I believe, and it's sort of a shame to even talk about it, but I believe that most Americans are lazy. I believe that most Americans don't want to earn a dollar. They'd rather wait for someone to give it to them. They don't want to hand out to people and be a human being to their fellow human being on this planet, but they'll in an instant take from you. So we not only have the infection of big business and money infiltrating our government, but we also have a social disease of laziness and ignorance.
I would completely agree with you to some degree, Shane. And the reason why I say that is because I don't truly believe that the entitlements of our government have created the atmosphere to where Americans have become lazy. I believe solely that has a lot to do with the educational system, because like you just said, a lot of Americans are pretty much just ignorant to the inner workings of government or money or banks and just anything, etc. So it's very important for us as citizens to be well informed, and that's where a true strong national body comes into play, is when we all are well-informed citizens and know everything that we need to know. And it's unfortunate, but our educational system limits that information, and especially now with the Common Core system that has overtaken a lot of our states' educational programs. It pretty much again will refrain from giving students all of what they need to know in life. And it isn't until you get to college or something like that where you actually start learning truths about the world itself. And that's unfortunate, because now, because of the for-profit college system that's taken over our country, unless you have the money, you're left dumb. And
well, you're striking up a very good point, and this is actually something that we could continue with in our second hour. If you would like to stick around and join us for that, we would greatly appreciate it. There's many things that you've spoken about today that I would like to bring back into focus and get more of a working knowledge of your thought process on these issues. I mean, if you would be willing to join us for our second hour.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've delegated enough time for you today to talk to you as long as you like, so
okay,
I'm more than happy to.
That's great. So I'm going to turn it back over to Robert, because I think we're getting ready to take our mid-break. So, Robert?
Yeah. We, Governor, if you can hang on, I've got about 2 minutes or so prior to the top of the hour. That is what we call our hard break. That way stations can identify themselves. A short news reel from other networks and other places. If they would like to do so, that's when they do that. But you bring a lot of very interesting things, I do believe, to the table. And hey, folks that are watching in the live show, the live channel, if you all have a question for Governor Wildstar, and what is on his agenda for the future, what he plans on doing, perhaps into the next election, then of course ask your questions. Absolutely. So Joy Shane and Governor Wildstar, if both of you can mute your mics at this time, that'd be lovely. And then we can go for our break, folks. Hey, this is the Robert Christian Show. You can, of course, visit us, folks, on the web at robertchristianshow.com. And, of course, hey, you all can find us on Facebook-a-roni. There you go. Look us up at Robert Christian Show. There you go. All right, folks, we are going to take our little short break, and we will be back. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go too far. Hang on, and we'll be back. I don't know.
I think I got what it takes.
But Joy's got this auctioneer thing. Go ahead, Joy.
All right. Here we go. This is how we do it in North Carolina. Ready? Ready for it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Can I get $1? Can I get $1.50? Can I get $2? Can I get $2.50? $2.50 going once. $2.50 going twice. Sold for $2.50. Don't forget to pay the lady.
That's not bad.
See?
That's not bad. It's not how fast you go, Joey. It's how well of a communicator you are. And I would say that was very clear and precise and right on.
Charisma, man. I got it.
You do have some of it.
I got something.
No, you do. I would say you've got a good basic building blocks there to be an excellent auctioneer. Robert, are you an auctioneer also?
Oh yeah, he's amazing. He's awesome.
No, I'm not. You know what? I told you the story, Dan, back when I was in school. Oh, I will just a sec.
He has to tell the story first.
Yeah. I told you I got a D. Folks that are watching the live show or the podcast or YouTube, hello YouTube, we love you. We have a good teacher here, but he's got a really poor student. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, no, I'm just thinking that, the differences between your guys' style, if I was just trying to give an objective opinion, I would say that Joey Shane was very clear with what he wanted. And he was very clear with where he was at and what he was looking for. And so, therefore, he may have been slow and methodical, but he might have been effective. Robert Christian, you had a lot of swag going there. I mean, it sounded great, but it just didn't make a lot of sense. I mean,
well, it never does.
Well, it's supposed to.
Okay, now let's hear a pro do it.
Well, if I was just to do it just regular, I might say, well, I've got $1 here, and he'll give me $2 where? I've got 1 here, now 2 where? Now 2 to 2. What about 2 to 2? What about $2? How about that? What about 2 to 2? What about 2 to 2? How about $1.50? I got about what about 150 going once? I got a $1 bill and that $1.50, and what about 150 going twice? Got to go guess what? 175, $2, $2.50, $3. Got to go guess what? 9. So let you wait for $2.50, 80 cents, and thank you. Good night, fine, bye, Dr. Gray. Tell a friend who sold it to you. That'd be Dan Dotson, American Auctioneers. And don't forget to pay the lady.
All right, hey, folks, welcome back to the Robert Christian Show. That was promo, folks, from the interview that we did with Dan Dotson from A&E's hit series Storage Wars, L.A. Style. I still am in contact with Dan, and the plans are to have Dan back on the show in the future. Meanwhile, we also have upcoming shows, folks, on the issue of same-sex marriage and states that have bans against same-sex marriage. And we're going to be finding out from an attorney on one of the upcoming shows about same-sex marriage. And as I remember, he is from the state of California. So it will be very interesting to find out what's going on in the world of family and of unity. And here we have our guest today, folks, is Governor Wildstar from California. And he has, as we were just talking about, or bringing into the fold of today's conversation, an interview with him, the issue of education and how ill-educated that people really are. You know, there is a Governor Wildstar. Are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
You know what? There is a website, a group. It's called CMAC, SEAMAC, CMAC. I believe it's the way that they spell their name. But what they are a group of people that get together every year or every time that there is an election, every time that there is something going on in Washington State, when it comes to elections, when it comes to candidates and potential candidates running for offices. And what they do is that they sit down with these candidates and ask them the hard questions, i.e. questions that I would ask them. Trust me, you know, I've made a lot of people very furious because I am the one and I do ask very hard questions. But I do it for a reason, because I want to challenge people to break out of the box and to stop thinking. And, you know, I don't get this. They say, you know, we are Occupy, or we are this, or we are that. We're going to protest this store, this box store, but yet 5 minutes later, we're going to go to that box store and go buy a pair of tennis shoes. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We can't have it both ways, and I think that people, they are very ill-educated when it comes to elections, when it comes to our educational system in the United States. It is, you know, look, I said it, 2 years ago, before Joey Shane, and I love him, before Joey became the co-host of the show. You know, I'd said, and I made a lot of people very furious. I said, look, our educational system has been sold down the river, but at what cost? Yeah. What do you think about it?
You're right. I mean, it pretty much the money in our educational system has changed the priority, which is for people to learn. And I mean, education shouldn't come with a price tag. Education, learning, just being able to expand your mind should always be free. And
okay, let me interrupt you just for a second. And I hate doing this, I really do. But I like to get the best out of the guest always, and I like to make all of our guests look good. But let me ask you this. Let me put you on the spot. What do you think of this idea? And you know, there's a lot of people that agree to it, believe it or not. And it is something that I thought about. And it's this, that as far as student loans and the federal government in the United States having student loans, that the government really should get out of student loans, period. No longer have them. Instead, have a plan in place where anyone that desires a higher education would be able to get that higher education, period, at no cost to them.
I couldn't argue with you on that one.
At absolutely no cost. I mean, look, but there again, you could have a country, a nation full of very well-educated people, but unless that there are jobs at the end, then where is the checks and balances then when you get out of college? Right.
And I mean, it's sad that when you have other countries like Saudi Arabia, other Middle Eastern countries, etc., that fund or pretty much allow their citizens to go to college and learn everything for free. I mean, what's the problem with America? And I mean, even when I was out collecting signatures at Cal State Fullerton, that's actually what I was asked by a few of the students there. People were what was my idea for education? And I said to get back to a free educational system like California universities were back in the 80s. It's like I was a kid then. I was born in 1981. So why is it that I can look on the internet, which is a free educational tool, okay, and find out that education was free?
For now, the internet is free. For now.
Exactly. You are absolutely right, and that's why the internet to me is our last stronghold, and that's why I truly do appreciate those technical people that are in Anonymous that pretty much have made that their last straw. At that point, they're willing to get more involved and do things online to protect us as a whole. Because if it wasn't for the awareness of SOPA and CISPA and, you know, all of these bills that are attacking the government, even now, our Senate is contemplating a new bill that would give them more control over the internet. And I mean, what's happened with the merger with Time Warner and, Comcast or whatever, it's pretty much just monopolizing our information.
Well, as I remember, talking about CISPA, as I remember, that did actually pass yesterday.
Oh my God, I think that's what I'm talking about. They slid it under the table real fast.
Let me ask, before I get to head over heels, D, if you're in the chat somewhere, I posted earlier today 2 links. One of them in your chat was about that issue. Do you have that, or did you look it up? Okay. But
while D's looking for that, I don't want to jump too far ahead, because on the topic of education, I wanted to point out that not every person wants to continue to college or a university or someplace like that for a higher form of education. Some people, like myself, want a basic education and then want to, go out into the world, get a job, regular job as I call it, and experience life a bit more than sitting in a classroom for 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 12 years in some cases. But my point for saying that is we have an education system that is set up to catapult students into the college and the university level, where, as I had wished for myself and my fellow classmates who completely identified with the fact that we were not going to college, was we had nowhere to go after high school. There was nothing available to us, except taking very low-paying, mediocre jobs. So if you know that you're not college-bound or university-bound during high school, why isn't there something set up for those students who, say, want to go into the electrical field, the plumbing field, small engine repair, automotive engine repair, diesel mechanics, things like that? Why are we so focused on projecting students to a university or college level, only to find out that later on you're indebted, like Robert was talking about, to the government or to loan officers or grants or Pell Grants or whatever they're called, and you're in debt for the next 30 years along with a mortgage and stuff. So why isn't something set up for the people who know that they don't want to go to college?
I love that you actually have that mindset, because that inspires me to know that in the future, when I do have kids, that, they will have a free educational system where by the time they're 11, they'll speak 3 different languages, know calculus, trigonometry, and, more about our history than I could ever know. So,
Right.
Well, let me brag just a second on Dan Dotson. I love him. I think he's great. A good friend. But his wife, Laura Dotson. Now here they are, auctioneers, right? Fast-talking auctioneers. Here they are at the top of their game. She knows like 11 different languages fluently. Now, why is it that in the States it's like if you don't speak English, then you're going to speak Spanish? And that's pretty well it. That's not, I wouldn't necessarily say that's bilingual, right? It's one or the other. But what's the matter with really educating ourselves, not just to speak another language, but educating ourselves to know what it is like to live on the other side of the fence? I mean,
Right.
look, the United States, no, it's not. It's not the best place on earth. No, all right. However, believe it or not, Cuba has a far better. They have a far better healthcare system than that is what is in the United States.
Yeah, you're
I mean,
right.
look at it. In Cuba, their healthcare is a national healthcare system, just like in Canada. Now, no, it is not perfect. However, there isn't such thing as uninsured. You don't have to worry about it.
Right.
So somewhere, somebody is really getting their back pocket tickled really good, right? With taxpayer dollars.
Absolutely. And the problem, again, just goes back to one simple thing: money. You know, it's pretty much involved in every every operation that goes on in this country, whether it be the medical industry, the technological industry, the educational industry. It all revolves around profit over people. And until we eradicate that, we won't see any change. And that's why I'm a big promoter of auditing the Federal Reserve. I believe that everything that's going on right now with the IRS trials over the missing emails, et cetera, that will lead to that audit of the Federal Reserve, which in turn will end the IRS and will restart our economy, because we'll end up finding out that our whole monetary system was false. It was based on falsities. It was based on lies and, people creating numbers out of thin air, like the LIBOR scandal, which has created all of these payouts from, banks like Citibank, to the tune of billions and trillions of dollars. And this is happening right now, and people are completely unaware of it. I mean, I just saw an article about how B of A got fined like $100 trillion. So, $100 billion. So, with them having to pay these fines because of the international markets are the ones making a stink of it, not American markets, but in Europe and Asia, in the Middle East, etc. Pretty much, they're starting to see the holes in the whole Keynesian economical system, which is creating this bubble that's going to burst. And when it does, all fiat currencies will fail at that point, whether it be the dollar, whether it be the euro, whatever. If it's based on a fiat currency system, it will fail. Well,
it brings me to a mindset about the Bitcoin. There are a lot of people who they like the idea of a Bitcoin, but and they say down with big banks. Okay, wait a second. The Bitcoin, however, what it is still backed by U.S. currency, by the greenback. It is not backed by its own merit. And I'm not so certain that it could be otherwise.
Well, it's actually a bit more technical than that. I believe that its value is dictated on the amount of users. So it's a peer-to-peer currency that's created. It's by us.
But to buy into it, you can't buy into it with Bitcoin. You have to buy into it with U.S. dollars. So therefore, it's still paid for by.
Buying into is different than if you had a computer that would mine bitcoins for you. And the people that are really making money off of bitcoins are the people that have those high-powered computers that are doing the mining, finding the bitcoins. So if we want to, for instance, okay, if I want to buy a bitcoin, I have to use American dollars. But I'd have to do the same thing if I wanted to buy the rupee, or, you know, the Nigerian dollar, or, you know, Chinese currency, or something like that. I would still have to use that exchange in order to obtain that property, that currency. So it works the same way. But again, if you had a computer that was doing Bitcoin mining, you'd be getting those Bitcoins out of the work that's being done by the computer. Your computer is basically your workhorse, you're you. And so instead of you going out there working 9 to 5, your computer is working for you 24/7, and it's going to keep digging and digging until it discovers a Bitcoin, and then it's going to put that away in your bank and your wallet. So your work is based on your computer's, you know, process. But I do strongly support cryptocurrencies because I just think that we, the people, need to have an alternative currency in place when the dollar fails, not were the dollar to fail, because it will fail. And
you know what? Let's do a little bit of math. And for those that are mathematicians, better than me, hey, if you've got a huge calculator, do a little math. And this is, you know, I've said this over and over before, that the actual cost that it cost the American taxpayer in bank bailout money alone, if you look at the whole thing, dollar for dollar, you know, it would have been far more economical for the U.S. government to have sent every American 18 years of age or older a check for $10,000 and stimulate the economy with it, than it would have been for them to tickle the pocketbooks of these banks that had no business being bailed out. They didn't need to be bailed out. Look at what they did. Just prior to the big bank bailout, what they decided to do was raise interest rates on credit cards, home loans, automobile loans. It is absolutely repulsive, and they got away with it.
And they don't forget they gave themselves bonuses too.
Oh yes, let's not forget this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. With all of the money that they supposedly put into the economy to stimulate it, it pretty much just did more inflating of the dollar, and that's what the Federal Reserve has been doing with this buying of subsidies with the QE3, which will end in October. Okay, so this is just a fair warning to all of you out there. The Federal Reserve is planning to end QE3 in October, which is their quantitative easing package to basically buy up subsidies every month to the tune of billions of dollars. Billions with a B. Okay? So pretty much what they're doing is they're inflating the dollar come for October. They're going to take off for the holidays, and then come the beginning of the year, the Federal Reserve is going to announce QE4. This is a prediction by me and none other, so I'm just basing this off of what I've been recognizing in the markets and what's going on. But when the Federal Reserve goes to announce QE4 in the first quarter of the new year, that will create hysteria around the world. Basically, you'll have...
Well, 2 points I'd like to make that you're bringing up, and I have to interrupt because if I don't, I'll never get to say anything.
Sure.
We have a guest that comes on the Robert Christian Show quite frequently, and he's due to come back sometime soon. His name is Dr. Simon Atkins, and he's a I can't remember what his title is, but they predict things that are going to happen. And on a recent visit he had to the Robert Christian Show, he had predicted that one day we would take our checks to the bank on a Thursday or Friday, and that Saturday the banks would not be open. Monday the banks would not be open. Tuesday the banks would not be open. Wednesday, the banks would not be open, and by that Thursday, there would be pretty much a panic as to why none of the banks are open. And then they would reveal that the U.S. dollar had failed, and if you had a dollar in your pocket, it was now worth, I can't remember exactly what he said, maybe Robert can remember, but it was something like a 1/12 of a percent of what it was originally worth. And, yeah, and my very first initial reaction to that was, why are we not following the gold standard? Why do we keep producing this money, this imaginary money that actually has no monetary value except for the fact that we have faith in it? And I'm still confused at the fact of why we have moved away from the gold silver standard to this paper folding money that just magically is reproducing itself with no real.
Let me ask you this, Joy, and Governor Wildstar, both of you. A good question, Joy, but you know what? You are right on top of it. But I'm going to go ahead and blow the door off of this. Do you think that maybe that is why that Mitt Romney has as many millions of dollars, and a lot of these millionaires and billionaires that live in the United States have all of this money, countless dollars, offshore?
Well, I don't. Yeah, that's probably true. Partly true, but it's sort of like Governor Wildstar was talking about earlier. You know, getting into politics, if you don't have the financial backing, then you really have no. And I'm going to use my own terminology, Governor. But if you don't have the money, then you don't have the power. And those who have this large amassed fortune in money that isn't backed by the gold standard, they have the power, they have the control over things. They can buy and sell at will, whereas a regular Joe has to scrimp and save just to buy groceries to feed his children. So, you know, it seems like people who have money are heard more than people who don't have money, but that's only because they buy that time to be heard.
Exactly. It's pretty much just like the stock market crash that created the Great Depression. What sparked that was J.P. Morgan, you know, the largest banker in America at that time, pretty much pushing to have this Federal Reserve Act passed, and because Congress wasn't budging on it, he said, okay, if you don't want to give me my way, I'll create hysteria and I'll make it so where you have to make it my way. And when he created this rumor about the stock market crashing and all of this stuff, people took their money out of Wall Street and out of the banks. And what he did was he came in with his millions and billions of dollars and bought up all of these subsidies that pretty much, and stock bonds, etc., that pretty much hit, pennies on the dollar. So he bought all of this up and then pretty much said, no, actually everything's fine. And then at that point, the damage had been done. And, that's when we implemented the whole Federal Reserve Act to give the Federal Reserve power over coining money in our country and taking that power away from the country itself. So since our money isn't backed by anything except for the public's belief in that it's worth something, once you take that away and show them that it's worthless, then you'll have mass panic, mass hysteria, and 10 times worse than the Great Depression. So at that point, you got some Hunger Games type of thing going on, because it doesn't matter
now
how
you're
much
bringing
you
up,
have at that point.
Right.
You're bringing up a very good point, one that is
Sure.
near and dear to my heart. Robert allowed me to do a couple of shows a few months ago on a topic that I call the end of it all, the end of life as we know it now, today. And it is a complete reversal of what we know now. And it sort of ties into the educational topic we were talking about earlier. The things that we run to the store, or people run to the store with, and they break out their wallets, or they pull their debit card out of their wallet, their EBT card, or whatever card that they're paying for the product with, will no longer be in service. There won't be anything like that. You'll have to actually earn what you eat, or what you have, or where you live with your own two hands. And my belief is that education has become a trap, because we're educated from birth. You have to have money, you have to have money, you have to have money to survive in this world, which is true. But what happens if what you're talking about happens? If there's like this huge craze that happens where the dollar collapses, and people no longer have the option of going to the store and buying this product or that product. What happens when the only thing that you have that they have not stolen from you is your education, the things that you know firsthand? So I'm a firm believer in preparing for, hoping for the worst, and hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. That's sort of the way that I live, and I educate myself, and I try to gain a working knowledge of how things in the world operate, the basic things: food, clothing, water. How am I going to get clean water if I can't go to the store and buy my bottled water that I'm used to going and buying? What do I used to do if I have to step outside my comfort zone and purchase food?
Well, let me ask you this, Governor. What is your thought, speaking of bottled water, what is your thought on the issue of fracking?
It's disgusting. I mean...
Okay, let me play devil's advocate. What's the matter with it? I like it. I think it's great. I think it's delicious. I'm getting rich. What's the matter with it?
Oh my God! You sound like this guy I met at a protest. He pretty much said the same thing about GMOs, because he worked at Monsanto, and he said, everything's fine to me because I'm getting rich off of you dying.
You didn't get it. You did not get what I was saying. You didn't get what I was saying. Hey, what is the matter? And I have to say it with hey. Hey, what is the matter with fracking? Because I think it's delicious, it's glorious, it's wonderful. I'm getting really rich, so I'm not worried about my pocketbook, but everybody else has to go to the store and buy a bottle of water. What's the matter with that? I don't see that there's anything wrong with it. I'm getting wealthy off of it.
The problem is, again, the exchange of profit over people. And I mean, even though you're wealthy and your bank account is getting fatter because you're able to receive this gas, from a unreliable or untested source, pretty much it's causing health conditions and creating an atmosphere to where our planet was most important than anything else. To me, the planet, its survival is what's most imperative for the life of humankind, because without it, we all die. And we're seeing, examples of that all over the world, with the up and down heat and up and down cold extremities, and natural disasters, etc. It all has to do with our raping of the world, and fracking is just another way to do that, just like the XL pipeline.
Okay, let's talk about it, because for our friends in Canada, and I've got friends in Canada, love them, think they're great. They're almost American, right? Almost. They're Canadian. I've got to pick on them just a little bit. Of course, the XL pipeline. Now, let's remember, Joey Shane, let's go back in history just a little bit. And they said originally that the XL pipeline is, in quotation, a good thing because it is going to help to reduce the amount of oil from foreign oil that Americans that we would consume. Here is the problem. Canada never was part of the United States. Secondly, the XL pipeline ends at the Gulf of Mexico in Houston, Texas, and where it is the oil, the crude oil, then would be put on ships to go overseas, right? Okay, so how is that helping America, the United States, from its likeness of foreign oil? It doesn't happen.
Exactly, and it's not going to ever help because this entitlement personality really isn't really an entitlement personality. It's a dependency problem. When we're dependent on our government, like Shane said, for everything, for food, for water, for clothing, for shelter, for the necessities of life, and just being able to live prosperously. And that's a problem because we're trading profits over just sustainability as human beings. And that's an extreme problem because if these corporations are promising guarantees of, more this, more that, how about less? I say at this point, oil, since it's qualified and classified as a fossil fuel, needs to remain that, a fossil fuel. It's archaic in its use, and we need to grow and create better technologies out of the technology that we have, as well as create new ones.
Okay, let's put the lid on this for a second. All right, let that part stew. Joey Shane, you remember on the news, Governor Wildstar, you probably heard about it. But last week, I was on a vacation last week from the show, doing absolutely nothing. No broadcasting, zip, last week. But last week it was aggravating because last week we found that there is a single city in Florida that says you have no choice besides to be connected to the power grid. You can't have a solar house and rely solely on your own solar panels for energy sources. You have to go through the onboard power companies, water companies, sewage, etc., and they all have to be connected to your house by law. Now, what do you? If they did that in California, what would you say?
It's a threat to us living. I mean, they don't want us to live, truly. And I mean, even with the proposed tax that they're trying to imply on people that own electronic vehicles, it's a tax per mile. And they're actually testing this out, I believe, in Utah or something like that. But they created this little box or monitoring system that goes into the vehicle, and it tracks and taxes you by each mile that you drive. Now, this is a bill that's being pushed right now through Congress to basically tax the people that have electronic vehicles like Priuses, which isn't dependent on gas up until 40 miles per hour, or other hybrid vehicles, to pretty much say that because they aren't buying enough gas, we got to be able to get our money somehow, some way. And that's the exchange that we're making with capitalism, is we're trading it for humanitarianism.
There's a movie that I think that you'd really enjoy. It's called Who Killed the Electric Car? And believe it or not, the EV1, which was the very first electric car that was made, it was leased to people in California several years ago, and it was under the Bush administration that Bush had ordered all of those cars to be recalled and destroyed. And the reason why, those cars, they used zero oil whatsoever, none, except for the wheels, the tires that made it go down the road. But you know what? It was fast, it was very efficient, and it was very cheap to run. And so now here, the big automakers in the United States, in Detroit, they're saying, oh, this is new technology for these batteries and battery operated cars. No, it isn't. That technology has been around for years.
Right. And even with the Tesla motor, I mean, that'll be another way to pretty much tax us for driving, you know, because that's a vehicle that runs on a completely separate technology, you know, that unless you go to your charging station, pretty much the car will work. But what you're talking about with what's happening in Florida, I would recommend to you a movie called Garbage Warrior, which is a movie about a architect named Michael Reynolds, who pretty much moved out to a place called Taos, New Mexico, to create sustainable housing units called Earth Ships. Okay, he's pretty much like coined the name Earth Ship. But these Earth Ships are basically homes that are completely self-sustainable. They have their own energy source. They have their own water source. They have their own sewage source. And each house is independent in itself. They even have their own gardening units in each home. So you can have your own garden. You don't have to buy anything, pretty much. And at that point, you're completely off the grid. And in this movie, I won't spoil it for you, but I have it on my website. You can watch it for free at governorwildstar.com. I have a section called Screen Gems. And if you go down to the bottom, I have this movie, which is the Garbage Warrior movie. It's on YouTube also. But in the documentary, it shows his plight about building these sustainable homes, these Earth Ships, back in the 80s, to where he started to grow and create communities. Once he got to that level, the state started to get involved, and they made him jump through all of these hoops and, you know, about, you know, permits and all of this other stuff. And it's just a headache just to explore and try something new, you know, to create an environment to where we're not being dependent anymore on these corporations to provide for us. We shouldn't have to provide, we shouldn't have to be dependent on grocery stores to provide food, or, you know, people bottling water for us that should be able to come out our taps for free. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to be able to drink water out of the sink. And I dare not do that here in California, or else I may end up extremely sick. And that's awful to know that we have we pay somebody each year, a state representative, to basically handle the water, and we can't even drink our water. Some of it is so bad you can't even shower with the water. You have to have your own water conditioning unit to change things or alkalinize it or something. But I would say pretty much it's time for us as people to start becoming more well-educated, and it does start first with our educational system. And one of my proposals for running in office, and as again part of this People's Party coalition, is to create what's called educational centers, which are basically just buildings with a whole bunch of freestanding computers, etc., where we can learn any information that we want, no matter what age that you are, in a group setting. It'll also be supported by forums where we can speak with people with experience and learn from them, as well as each other. Because like Shane said, you know, it would be best to where I would want to learn a skill directly from that person themselves. So it's crazy that we've gotten so dependent, again, on our educational system to provide this knowledge to us, when back in, 1930s and, 40s, even before or whatever, in order to be a dentist or an electrician or something like that, you had to go and be an apprentice, so to speak, and learn directly from that person itself. And that's how these skills got passed down generation after generation through the years, through the centuries. That's how. Not through books, not through college, not through professors or etc. It was from person to person, and we need to get back to that state. I mean, like I said, when I was a kid, pretty much things were so different. I remember my neighbor, he pretty much fixed everything. I think he built his own house, and he was the neighborhood electrician, and he had the educational learning equivalent to an 8th grade education. And he pretty much said that he learned everything that he knew from other people, from, you know, friends and relatives, or just anybody pretty much just willing to share the knowledge with that person. And that's what's going on now with the Earthship project out in Taos, New Mexico, is because this architect, Michael Reynolds, is inviting people to come out there and learn how to build your own Earthship. And it's become a worldwide movement. He actually went out to Indonesia during their tsunami to help them build Earthships. So he taught them this building style, and they have now replicated it successfully. He also went down to Mexico when they had their large earthquake after Hurricane Katrina, and he taught them how to build Earthships as well, and they're replicating this. So it's being done all over the world. So I take ideas like with what Michael Reynolds is doing with his Earthships, and with what Jacques Fresco is proposing about switching our economical system to a resource-based economy, to where we're sharing technologies with each other for the betterment of mankind that's not based on a monetary system. Money in itself serves a purpose just to be an incentive for us to work. We think that without money, we wouldn't want to work. But if we had everything provided for us, we had a roof over our head, we had reliable energy and water and food, then our purpose in life changes. Now we're more motivated, even more so, to go out in the world and showcase our abilities to one another, because the motivation has changed from me having to sacrifice this 9-to-5 day job that I can't stand for doing something that I love to do, you know? And once that transition happens, again, we'll see a growth of humanity in itself, and not only mentally but spiritually as well. I think spiritually we've gotten away from the foundation of loving one another to hating one another. We find any reason now to chastise each other and frown upon each other, when really we should just be embracing each other fully and respectfully. That's all that matters, and that's all that should ever matter. If you don't like drugs, don't smoke them. If you don't like, you know, if you don't like pornography, don't watch it. You know, if you don't like alcohol, don't drink it. It's that simple. But when you go to say, I don't like something, but I'm going to make somebody force my beliefs upon you, is when things go awry. And that's what's been the example of our government over the past few decades or so.
Well, I tell you, I will read this from D from Occupy Toronto, and then Joy, if you want to ask, I guess, your final question, your final thought before the top of the hour. D says, by the way, Rob, in 20 minutes at 8 p.m. Eastern at Occupy Toronto, they are going to be premiering a new show, Sustainability. With engineer Marcel White, and it is about, he says, everything that you, Governor, have been talking about.
Wow.
Awesome. He said 15 minutes is episode 1. Fantastic. Joey Shane.
Did he disappear on us?
Yeah, I'm here.
He's there. All right, Joey. Hey, we've got about 9 minutes or so. What's on your mind? And let's get ready to get things wrapped up.
Well, I want to thank Governor Wildstar for being on the show today. I like a lot of your viewpoints and comments that you had. I wish we had more time, but we don't. But I would like to speak with you further off the show, maybe via Facebook or Skype or something, ask you some questions and things. But again, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure, Shane. And hey, I'm old-fashioned. I'll give you my number, and you can call me, and we can talk anytime. So I actually have a Google Voice number on my website, and I promote that to anybody that's listening as well. If you want to talk more with me about galvanizing and unifying for this fight for freedom and, fighting a good fight, let's talk about it, So my website is out there as a hub pretty much of information to inform people on all sorts of things. The Venus Project that I spoke of, the Earthships, martial law being implemented into America, how we, the people, could unite with this People's Party coalition and pretty much create a parallel democracy. And what one of my goals is to pretty much get involved in the Jefferson State Project. I don't know if you guys know this, but in the June 3rd election here in California, we had two counties, Del Norte County and Tehama County, which are two northern counties in California, vote to succeed from the state of California as well as the Union. One county said no, while the other said yes. So they will start this process to succeed from the Union and create this 51st state called Jefferson State, which has actually been in existence, I guess, in the northern area since the 1940s. So my wife and I are planning on moving out there, getting involved, and hopefully propagating this parallel democracy through the People's Party Coalition there, as well as throughout other places and throughout the country as well. So anybody that's willing to get involved and create this new government, wherever you are, let's talk. So please contact me, and I do thank both of you for having me on the show. I can't tell you how much it means to me just to connect with other like-minded people at such a level to where we can also share these ideas with the masses, because that's what's most important, is that, like you said about this, the guy out in Toronto with the sustainability film, great minds think alike. And right now we can tell that the universal consciousness of our mindset is evolving. And with that evolution of our mind is coming these new ideas of how we can move out of the archaic, poverty-stricken, tyrannical ways of living that we've gotten so comfortable with. So I just promote all of your listeners, continue listening, continue being involved, and sharing with others about what you learn.
Well, I'd like to forward over to Dee your contact info, if that's all right. Dee from Occupy Toronto, and who knows, he does interviews periodically on their channel here online, and I'm sure that he'd be more than happy to be able to perhaps interview you at a later date.
Absolutely, I would love that. Please pass it along to anyone and everyone. And again, if there is anyone out there that would like to contact me, please visit my website, Governor Wildstar, wild as in crazy, star like in the sky.com. And I do have a Google Voice number, as well as a contact area where you can email me, as well as a area where it's sort of like a chat box. So you're welcome to leave me a comment there, and I'll reply to you when I can. So just as long as we're connecting with one another, that's what's most important right now, is that we just shake hands and agree to disagree and realize that our enemy's enemy is our friend. And at this point, we know our enemy. They have shown themselves. They are blatant in their displays of attack against us. So it is time to befriend one another despite our differences, love one another despite our differences, and to stand up for each other. I believe that's what made the Civil Rights Act her civil rights movement back in the 60s so successful. I believe that's what made the revolution from, you know, the crown of England so successful. So it's up to we the people again to maintain this mindset and just hold true to the values of what truly makes us American.
Well, we definitely need to maintain and keep going and do the best that we can, because you know what, folks, at the end of the day, you got to always remember that we are all still on the same page. And yes, no matter how that we get there, we'll inevitably end up on the same page. Well, right. Governor Wildstar, hey, it's great to have you on, and I will be in contact with you here fairly soon.
Thank you so much again, both of you, and God bless you both. And I thank you, and I love the two of you, and profusely thank you from the bottom of my heart. So I truly do appreciate it.
Hey, well, you are more than welcome. All right, I will send you an email or something here in the next couple of days.
Great, sir. Well, thank you again. You guys have a very beautiful day, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
Let it be.
Absolutely.
All right. So long for now. All right, folks. That is Governor Wildstar, and he is, he had an awful lot to say. Joy Shane.
Yes.
All right, we've got just a couple of minutes before the end of the show. Wow. And you were worried. You were worried. Now I can pick on Joey. He was like, oh my God, we have a 2-hour show to do today. Yeah, Joey Shane.
Yes.
So correct. What do you think of that?
Well, it ain't Elvis's daughter, but I'll take it.
You know what, folks? For those that missed it, you know what? We had Elvis Presley's, no doubt, estranged daughter on one of the shows.
Strange being the key word.
And Joy Shane, he has never let me live that down yet. Oh my heavens to Betsy! Now that was something. I know we only have a few minutes, but I do have some concerns that I wanted to bring up to Governor Wildstar. That you can't just say, "Oh, I'm separate from the United States anymore." It doesn't work that way. There's too much control. There's too much government in everything, like he had talked before. And my fear is it being a pseudo Waco revelation, an end event. It's because he is correct. I mean, people are afraid. It's sort of like the things that I talk about on your show. When I mention the government, I'm like, well, are they going to come knocking on my door tonight? Is today the day that I'm going to disappear from the planet? So it concerns me when people rightfully think that they can, separate themselves from this huge entity that's become the United States and break off on their own. That's never going to happen. Not unless there is an end event. Like in the shows that I had did a while back, off the grid, you called them, but I just called them the end of, everything as we know it. Until something like that happens, we have an end event. There's no way that a group of people can just separate from the United States on United States soil. It's just never going to happen. No, I don't think so either, Joey. Although, it may be educational. Well, yeah, let me word it that way. Yes, it would be very educational to look at it that way, and to think, okay, well, what would it actually take for a state to secede from the U.S.? And then, is it worth it? And then, what about the local leaders that then would be their own country, their own state? What about those people? How to do this? But for historical reasons, that has never happened.
And it never will.
No, I don't think it will either. But, I know of what he was talking about, yes. Do I support the idea? Not necessarily, because, I have to look at what time it is in the real world. And no, we may not always see eye to eye, right? But we do need to be very careful with whom that we elect into public office. That is for certain.
That's the thing, like he was talking about, it's either Democratic or Republican. I mean, you really don't have any other choice because that choice has been taken away from us. Other people who are running the Democratic or the Republican Party, they have bought airtime. They have paid people who work for them that do their publicity and things like that and get their message out there, whereas you have someone like Governor Wildstar who has a voice, he has a message, he has, an agenda, but, those voices are muted. His voice is muted because he hasn't paid financially to have that voice heard, so it's muted. But the thing that I'm taking away from today's show is that he is absolutely right. Those that believe bad things are coming, we have to come together. Even if it's just like on an online forum or something to that nature, we have to come together. We have to have a plan of action just to survive. It has nothing to do with overthrowing the government or separating into our own entity of a state. We have to survive because it is coming. The end of it all is coming.
I think it is too, Joey. And I don't know when. Right now the only thing that I know is that we can prepare for our future. I'll word it that way. Prepare for your future, and rather than looking at things blindsided, cockeyed, unbalanced, we have to find a balance. And if we can't find the balance today in our life, maybe we'll find it tomorrow. Hey, Joey Shane, if you can hold on just for a minute or two after after we sign off the air, it'll be great to be able to visit with you.
Sure.
All right, folks. Hey, this is the Robert Christian Show. We are live on Fridays now. Actually, this month, the month of July, the remainder of this month, we will continue on with the shows on Tuesdays and on Fridays. However, next month, the month of August 2014, we're going to be going into one show per week, and that will be on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific. And the reason why is because of a lack of funding and a lack of support to keep us on the air. Look, at one time, we were on 5 days a week. Seriously. 2-hour shows, 5 days a week. That's what we did for a long time. And now here we are down to the last day. 1 day per week, for the live shows. And that really sucks. But until we get funding and until we have our viewer base that is extremely broadened, more so than it ever has been, we're going to be just doing one live show a week. But on Tuesdays, chances are it'll be repeat shows. Nevertheless, folks, I'm Robert Christian, Joey Shane Levy, and we'll see you all here next time, folks, for the Robert Christian Show. Start chatting in the box. Let me know what you all think of this. Ooh.
Oh, the sweet face. Hey, what do you want?